Hi there. I thought I'd do something a little bit different for this reading and have a video introduction. But, you're not going to miss anything too special if you just want to skip this and get, straight on with the story. My feelings won't be hurt at all, But apologies for the bad quality of this video. I usually don't upload videos on YouTube. Why would I? Who would want to watch some you know, creepy 40-year-old dude talk about random stuff. So I'm just using my laptop's webcam here. Anyway, welcome to story number 3 from my book, Hand of the Death God. Now, if you haven't heard or read any of the previous stories from this book, don't worry about it. They're designed so that you can read them independently of each other without any prior knowledge to the characters or anything like that. But with that being said, if you do read all of the stories, it starts to kind of paint a broader picture of things. But yeah, you don't have to do that. Anyway, today's story is Prison of the Damned. This is maybe well, it's definitely the goriest story that I've uploaded so far. Maybe not the goriest in the book. That might belong to Keep of the Heartless Dead, which is story number 4. But it is pretty violent, definitely R-rated, or maybe PG-13, depending on how vivid your imagination is. But yeah, it was partly inspired by the old 1980s animated film Heavy Metal. There's a scene in that takes place in this airplane, and well, I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but it's pretty creepy and really had uh, a powerful impact on me when I was a kid, and that kind of inspired some of the action in this story. What else? Yeah. So it's pretty bloody. There's lots of people getting their guts pulled out and eaten and all sorts of stuff like that. But also plenty of sword swinging action and heroics and all that good stuff. What else? Also, this story is actually unique in that it takes place in the nation of Kem. Now, Kem is a kind of Egyptian style country in this fantasy world that I've created. And most of the stories, it's where Akmotesh, my protagonist, comes from. But most of the stories don't take place there because uh, he's a wandering warrior priest that, basically goes to, the different countries of the world to enact his God's will pretty much. But so it usually takes place in sort of a Western style setting. But not all of the stories. Story number 5 in my book actually takes place in like an African type jungle. But anyway, most of them don't take place in Kem. This is so far the only story I've written where you get to see the hero's homeland. And the reason for this is I had a story that I wanted to have take place in a prison. But the problem is, these are sword and sorcery stories, and they take place in a setting that's maybe Iron Age or even Bronze Age. And I mean, in those times, let's face it, they wouldn't have had a very advanced criminal justice system, right? If someone did something wrong, they would just cut his head off. So I kind of had to think to myself, well, how can I create? Sorry, I've got a piece of food on my lip here. But anyway, so I had to think to myself, how can I incorporate a prison in this world? And then I got to thinking, well, so Akmotesh worships the god Anubis, which is kind of a conglomeration of both the real world Egyptian god Anubis and also Osiris. But anyway, so the whole idea is he is the judge of the dead. When someone dies, he judges them as worthy of, the afterlife or oblivion, I guess. But then, so it would follow that perhaps the people that worship him would put a very strong emphasis on, proper judgment for crimes, and perhaps they take carrying out capital punishment very seriously, and probably with a lot of hesitancy or reservation, because they don't want to unjustly kill someone as it would anger their God. So I thought, aha, so that's a good motivation for them to have a fairly advanced um, correctional system, you know. Um, and so that was kind of my reasoning for that. Now, this story can be a little bit silly in some instances. Of course, first of all, the idea that this ancient culture would have this prison system similar to our own modern day one is ridiculous in and of itself. But then there are things like hidden passages and sliding walls and also a lot of anachronisms. They have like a record keeping system on their prisoners. Um, they've got kind of these goofy, almost cartoonish Egyptian names that are kind of ridiculous. So it's an odd story. In some ways, it's a lot sillier and more cartoonish than some of my other stories, but in some ways, it's also more violent as well. It should be interesting. I hope you like it. It's got some good plot twists and that sort of things in it. Now, this might also be the final story from this book that I upload. As I said, there are two other stories in the book, bringing it to a total of five. But I don't know. I got to leave something. I have to give you some motivation to buy my book, available on Amazon, either in paperback or in Kindle. 99 cents if you just want the ebook version, $5 for paperback. It's a real bargain. Uh, but yeah, so I don't know. I might not upload those, but maybe I will. I mean, who cares? I'm not doing this for the money, right? However, um, on the other hand, I do have another book that I recently published. This one is it's a comedy, well, like a humor book called the Comedy Killers, Tales from the Clown Apocalypse, and it kind of takes a look at like the zombie tropes and that sort of thing, but it replaces them with clowns, and yeah, maybe it's funny. I don't know, but I might be uploading some um, some chapters from that in the future. We'll see. But anyway, I think that's about it. So I hope you like the story. Uh, as I said, I'm not really the most advanced I'm not the most adept at video editing, so there'll probably be a really abrupt video cut right about now.
"Welcome to the tomb," said Atenhotep, warden of Sumenkhet Penitentiary, with a detached flatness as he slid open the iron grill that led to Equitopolis's municipal prison. "Home to the city's finest thieves, murderers, and rapists, and your new station." Serti walked past the gate guard who, adorned in the cot and shendit of the local medjay, stood watch with a savage-looking baboon on the end of a leash. This would be the first time Serti had ever seen the inside of the mysterious penitentiary. Though he had been with the medjay for just over a year, the closest he had ever come was here, just outside the complex's front gate, where custody of prisoners was immediately and completely taken over by the guards within. Serti wasn't sure if all cities ran their prisons like this, but in any case, it only served to augment the air of mystery that surrounded the place, and further the many rumors regarding the structure. And there were many rumors. People whispered how, in addition to the prison's population of skilled thieves and violent offenders, there were even worse inmates, sorcerers, madmen, and even demons. Serti had heard on several occasions that it was haunted by the spirits of prisoners who had died there, and that their accursed wails could be heard echoing through the halls at night, causing both the prisoners and the prison keepers to be less sane after years within its walls. Serti had never heard these from any reliable source, however. Typically, those committed to Sumenkhet were there for the long term, and his guards tended to avoid any conversation about their work. Serti himself was skeptical about the whole thing. Though he considered himself a devout follower of Anubis, he was also an educated man and wrote off such tales as the fruit of the superstitious, overly imaginative, and gullible. Once Atenhotep pulled the iron gate closed with a clang, he turned and looked the new guard square in the eye. It was only the second time he had done so since Serti arrived. "So let's get this out of the way right now. What rumors have you heard about this place?" "What do you mean, sir?" Serti thought it best to feign ignorance of the issue lest he himself appear ignorant. Come on now, we both know what people say about this place, about the ghosts, the demons, and so on. Oh, that. I assumed it was all just rumors and superstition. Atenhotep gave a toothy grin, exposing an array of narrow brown teeth. A logical, down-to-earth man. I like that. He clapped the new recruit on the shoulder before continuing on. Of course, they're just rumors. Such things are the stuff of myths and folklore, and talk of it has no place in the practical world, especially not for men with positions as important as ours. By the way, did you ever notice that the sort of people who believe in superstition are either the very young or the very old? Strange, don't you think? Serti could only wonder what, if anything, was meant by this final out-of-place remark. The warden proceeded to show the new guard the layout of the penitentiary. "Any idea when they'll finish the new prison?" Serti asked. For many years now, a new penitentiary had been under construction amid rumors of a bloating prison population. Serti couldn't remember exactly when work on the new complex had begun, but it seemed like it had been in the building process for an unusually long amount of time. Atenhotep chuckled indignantly. "That's anybody's guess. They've been working on that place for years, and as far as I know, they're no closer to finishing." "What's been taking them so long?" "Oh, a whole host of problems. I wish to Anubis they'd get it done, though. It's high time they tore this old place down. Did you know it was designed by an old tomb architect?" "I didn't know that. Is that why people call it the Tomb?" "Partly." A grim look crossed the warden's face before his former conversational tone returned. "Anyway, the fellow supposedly designed some of the tombs out in the valley. They say he was pretty brilliant, but also slightly mad. In any case, he continued with his craft when he designed this prison. The place has a number of secret doors and passages for the guards, as well as a few security measures in case things get out of hand." As Serti soon found out, Atenhotep showed him a variety of devious traps and machinations that lay beneath the ordinary sand-colored bricks of the prison. The twin gates that closed off the prison offices from the dungeon had a hidden switch that, when activated, would cause the floor beneath to give way, dropping any who stood upon it into a dark pit below. "The idea is that any escaping prisoners will have to funnel through the gates, and when they do, they can be dumped," Atenhotep explained before mirthlessly adding, "probably breaking all their necks in the process." "There's also a secret passage from the cells below to the offices up here," he continued. "I don't want to show it to you in front of the prisoners, and you'll probably never need to use it, but it's there. Just keep an eye out for a lamp in the first row of cells that's unlit. If you take the clay jar off its base, you'll find a lever. If you give it a good pull, and you have to pull hard, the wall will give way and you can access a tunnel that leads up to administration. It'll look like it comes to a dead end, but if you look to your left, or feel, since it's damn dark in there, you can find a switch that'll cause the wall to open and put you in the hallways near the archives." "Isn't that a bit of a liability?" Serti asked. "If the prisoners found out about it could give them an easy escape route or even a means of ambush." "It could," agreed the warden, "except that its walls are loaded with poisoned darts. If someone gets in there and doesn't know about the trap, it'll fill them with holes." "Darts?" Serti echoed in amazement. "Poison darts," corrected Atenhotep, "applied with asp venom and some other things I'm not sure about. It's been a long time since anyone's looked at the trap, so maybe it doesn't even work, and even if it does, the poison might no longer be potent, which would be just fine for me. As far as I'm concerned, the fewer traps this place has, the better off we'll all be." A sullen look fell across the warden's face. "How does one pass the trap?" Serti asked. Atenhotep snapped out of his reverie. There's a pressure plate just inside the entrance. You can't avoid stepping on it, and that will activate the trap, causing the darts to unload about a minute after it's depressed. But every so many feet there's a wall panel with a Wadjet eye engraved on it. Pushing it will suppress the trap's timer for a few minutes, and if you keep doing that, eventually you'll get to the exit, at which point opening the door will deactivate everything. Oh, one thing I forgot, though. The path actually forks. We only know how to take the left path. We're not sure where the right one goes, but we do know it requires a different mechanism to deactivate, and somewhere along the line, the knowledge regarding its workings was lost. So if you ever end up in that tunnel, stay left. You'll probably never need to know that, though. Now, follow me, and I'll show you something else." Atenhotep led Serti to the outermost gate of the prison, where archers and trained baboons prevented anyone from getting out or in without the proper clearance. "I've been warden of this place for years now and have yet to see a prison break, so I wouldn't worry about it too much if I were you," he said. "However, if one does happen, and it won't, not while I'm in charge, the prison can be locked down. To do it, you remove that brick that has a picture of a Shen on it. It comes out without much effort. Inside you'll find a keyhole which, when activated, will cover all of the entrances and exits with solid plates of bronze, and the only way to remove them is from the outside. This can also be done from inside the prison from a location I'll show you later, and you seem to be smart enough that I don't need to tell you which of those choices is better. The barracks, the accounting office, the latrine, Atenhotep drawled as he briskly led Serti through the prison offices. The night warden, Futmos II, can show you all of that later, but follow me into the archives here for a minute. Serti followed him into a room in which heaps of papyrus scrolls lay stacked in a dizzying array of lacquered sycamore boxes. This is where we keep the records on all our prisoners, Atenhotep said as he walked over to a blank segment of the wall. His eyes scanned its featureless surface momentarily, after which he drew a curved dagger from his waist and thrust it into an unmortared slot. With little effort he pried out a brick, revealing a spiral-wrought handle within. Grasping this, the warden pulled, his old sinewy muscles briefly tensing, as the segment of wall slid aside on an unseen track to reveal a small storage chamber. Serti could see, on a shelf inside, what appeared to be a number of armaments and priestly trappings, an ankh, a sturdy-looking ceremonial mask, a number of small pouches and bottles, a breastplate, and a large sword with intricate hieroglyphics embossed on its blade. Sometimes when we receive new inmates, they come with a variety of items that need to be confiscated and held until the viziers decide what to do with them, if they should be given to relatives of the inmate or auctioned. This particular set of items, you see, belongs to our most recent prisoner, a sorcerer who is impersonating a priest of Anubis. He calls himself Akmotesh III. So Sumenkhet really does have sorcerers held within its walls? No, this is actually the first such case I've seen. I suspect that if someone truly is a sorcerer, he's not going to get caught. You don't think the man really is a sorcerer? Well, he claims he really is a priest, and that he was framed by one of the viziers. I think that I'm paid to keep him in a cell until I'm told otherwise, and that's all I need to know. But we do have a strict set of instructions to follow regarding him, and I might as well tell you them now. Don't maintain eye contact for more than 3 seconds while talking with him. Don't give him anything to write with. No chalk, no paint, no charcoal, not even a rock that he can make marks on the floor with. When we give the prisoners food, make sure there are no bones in his. He can use those for rituals. If he starts speaking with strange words or moving his hands in strange gestures, he needs to be told to stop immediately. If he doesn't comply, force needs to be used. But hopefully all that won't be a problem. He's been pretty cooperative so far. Oh, the most important thing, I'm told, is to make sure he doesn't touch you. We're told he can kill with a touch. I don't know if that's true, but I'm not going to chance it. All right then. I suppose it's time I took you down below where we keep the prisoners. Tonight I want you to familiarize yourself with each of them by reading the records we keep in the archives. They'll tell you how to deal with each individual inmate. For now, just keep your head high and ignore any insults they throw your way. Though most of them know better than to cause trouble with us. Oh, one other thing. Save any questions you might have for after we leave. Asking too many questions in front of the prisoners make you seem like you don't know what you're doing, and they'll respect your authority less. They passed through a large portcullis, which, to Serti, looked a lot like a screaming mouth. We used to have guards posted here, and there are a series of ledges over there on which archers could be stationed, but these days we don't always have enough men to make that happen. Once people get this job, they usually leave as soon as they can. Serti wondered why. So far it didn't seem any more difficult than a usual day on the job with the Medjay. He followed the warden down a lamp-lit series of stairs, which opened up into a large, dim, subterranean corridor lined with barred cells. "Here we are," said Atenhotep, "the most important place in Equitopolis that no one wants to go." As they walked down the corridor, Serti could feel the silent, hateful gazes of the prisoners as they eyed him from within the confines of their cells. He tried not to make eye contact, but couldn't resist sneaking a glimpse now and then. They were, by and large, a motley and unwholesome-looking lot. Scars, missing teeth, and crude tattoos marred their appearances. While this normally would have been intimidating, their loincloth-clad frames marked them as men bereft of possessions and power, rendered impotent by the law of the civilized world. But was that truly it? Or is there something else? There was something about these men that gave many of them a haunted look, as though they had seen or experienced things not meant to be known by the daylit world. Perhaps it was the toll of hard living followed by imprisonment. There was one prisoner, however, who stood out from the rest. As Serti passed, he found his attention was drawn to him as a nail to a lodestone. Unlike the others who lay on their simple cots, this one was standing, and standing tall, having the dignified posture of a vizier or a pharaoh. Keen, falcon-like eyes met Serti's as he passed, and in them he saw an unbreakable will, as well as wisdom beyond their owner's years. And something else, something intangible, a sort of aura that seemed both dangerous and reassuring at the same time. Serti had no doubt this was the sorcerer about whom he had been informed. As you can see, Atenhotep explained, it's not the royal palace, but we keep these dogs well fed and clean, which is more than they deserve, most of them. I bet he won't even last one night, came a gravelly voice from one of the cells. It belonged to a gaunt, rangy prisoner with a notched ear. Once he hears the screamers, he'll run crying for his mother. What's that, Tefu? You want to skip breakfast tomorrow? Said Atenhotep. I think that can be arranged. The prisoner lapsed into silence and retreated back to his cot, but a satisfied smirk still sat on his face. They continued to walk past the various prison cells with their menacing menagerie of degenerates glowering at them. Serti momentarily allowed himself to imagine what would transpire if they ever got free and what they would do to him. He recalled once seeing a traveling zoo as a child and gazing at its collection of asps, hippopotamuses, lions, and crocodiles while wondering the same thing, and realized the animals might have actually been less dangerous than the prisoners, since the former knew only the need for survival. The men in this human zoo, however, could think, and they understood the concepts of cruelty and torture. The network of cells was devoid of sunlight, but rather used a system of clay jars filled with oil and floating wicks to provide light in the subterranean dungeon. They were evenly dispersed throughout the cell rows, and all of them were lit, except one. This must have been the lever which opened the secret passage to the floors above, Serti guessed, and as he looked to Atenhotep for some sign of confirmation of this, he thought he saw the warden surreptitiously jerk his head in the direction of the unlit lamp. When they neared the end, Serti noticed a large pile of stones and rubble covered the entrance of what seemed to be a passageway or door of some sort. He wondered briefly about this, but remembered the warden's orders to refrain from asking questions. Almost as if in response to his unvoiced query, one of the prisoners shouted from his cell, Did you tell him what's on the other side of the rubble? Hey, maybe you should set the new guard to work clearing it out. Ha ha ha. Maybe I'll set you to work clearing it out. How would you like that? Came the warden's reply. As Serti and Atenhotep climbed the stairs back out, the guard asked his questions. What's beyond the blocked passage down below? And what did that prisoner mean by screamers? Atenhotep sighed and ceased his climb up the stairs to look Serti in the eye. I suppose now is as good a time as any to tell you. Remember earlier when you said you didn't believe in the rumors surrounding this place? Well, the truth is, it's all true. And after you've worked here a while, you'll absolutely believe in black magic and demons. Did you know this place used to have 2 floors of cells? No, as I've said, I don't know much about it at all, said Serti, wide-eyed. It did, before I became warden. The lower level was where the worst prisoners were kept, mass murderers, cannibals, sorcerers, and those possessed by demons that refused to be exorcised. As you know, the pharaoh has mandated that no prisoner is to be executed, as only Anubis may judge men worthy of life or death, so we needed some place where we could put the devils to keep them away from the rest of society, and, to hear tell, it worked pretty well, until one day when they escaped. One of the prisoners apparently got hold of a guard's keys and let the rest of the crazy bastards out. Several guards met some pretty messy ends down there, and things probably would have gotten a lot worse, but there was a special measure employed to prevent just a thing from occurring. I've shown you some of the secret doors and switches that were installed in this place. Right. Well, the lower level had a deadfall trap. If someone who didn't know what he was doing walked those halls, he ran the risk of triggering a pile of rubble to come crashing down over the only entrance to the place, sealing him in along with anyone else who was down there, with no way in or out. Why such a lethal measure? And didn't the designer bother to put in some kind of secret side tunnel? Atenhotep shrugged. Did I mention the designer had mostly worked on building tombs, and that he was probably mad? Anyway, with no way in and no way out, the prisoners were trapped down below to die, and that's the real reason why this place is called the Tomb. That's awful. You haven't heard the worst part yet. Even though that pile of rock and rubble is too thick for anyone to get through, people could still hear the prisoners' screams somehow as they tried to escape. Now, keep in mind what kind of folks these were, too. Violent, insane. You can only imagine what sorts of terrible things they did in their panic and rage to each other on the other side of those rocks. And worse yet, the screaming and wailing continued for days afterward. That long? Wouldn't they have died of thirst? Atenhotep fixed Serti with a cold, grim gaze. I said you haven't heard the worst part yet. On some nights, you can hear them still. The screamers. Atenhotep replied with a barely discernible nod of his head. A few seconds later, he said, The prison crowding problem is not because of harsher laws or increasing crime. It's because the cells where we normally put all the really bad ones are sealed off, forcing us to mix them in with the common thieves and gangsters. Moreover, they want to get everybody, guards, prisoners, everybody, out of this accursed place and bury it deep in the ground. Only that's been difficult. They keep running into problems with building the new prison. The ground isn't stable, the walls crumble, problem after problem, and so we're forced to keep the prisoners here. Some say it's just bad luck, but I say it's a curse. There's something that doesn't want the evil here to rest, and it's making sure that the new prison never gets built. And now you know why there's such a heavy turnover here. It's not because of stress. It's not because of the danger of getting shanked by a cunning prisoner who's too smart for his own good. It's because of the screams of the ghosts of the insane prisoners of the past that come drifting up from below as their damned souls claw for freedom. But don't let that deter you. It's unsettling, but we've got a job to do, ghosts or no ghosts, and those bastards are sealed safely below through countless feet of solid stone. I've worked this job for years, and I'm still a sane man. We do what we have to because no one else wants to.